The Jays need relievers, and the Detroit Tigers need a catcher. So trade rumors are intensifying right now between these two teams. So Nick and I are going to break that down and give you some potential trades that we might see in the offseason. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside co-host Nick Gosse. Got a lot to get to today, but a very special video today because we just hit 2,000 subscribers, and we've been thanking you for 1,000 subscribers for the past couple videos, and now we're at 2,000. So the growth has just been unbelievable, and you guys have really made this unbelievable as a journey and been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been, like you said, unbelievable. There's no other word to describe it. Quick reminder, 85.3% of you guys who are watching are not subscribed. So if you enjoy the Daily Jays content, make sure you do hit the subscribe button. And thank you guys again for 2,000. I guess we're on the road to 3,000 now. It feels like just yesterday we were at like 1,500 or even 1K. But thank you guys a lot. The daily content does not stop. And we have a pretty good one for you today. Trade rumors are intensifying, and the Jays are just getting linked to a lot of players. And this one is about the Jays and the Tigers. So we'll get into a report by John Morrissey. Tigers and Blue Jays could revive the talks they had around the trade deadline. Toronto was willing to trade a catcher in the right deal, and Detroit has the swing and miss relievers coveted by the Jays. This is in reference to his prior tweet saying the Tigers are looking at catching or at the catching market this offseason. That they're interested in Wilson Contreras as well. So it seems like a pretty good fit on paper. Obviously, the question is, do the Tigers, have the assets or are willing to trade the assets that the Blue Jays want? And like John Morrissey said, I guess relievers. And we'll be going through a few potential trades that we think could work. But what are your initial thoughts on this? This report by John Morrissey.
It makes sense. I mean, the Tigers and the Blue Jays are just always linked just because of their close proximity to one another. But the Tigers have a lot of great bullpen arms, and for a team that's so bad, it's really surprising because if they actually do manage to get a lead, they would hardly give it up because their sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth inning guys were just unbelievable. They traded away Michael Fulmer last season to the Twins mid-season, so that was that, and that's one guy that the Jays were looking at to add to the deadline. But they still have a ton of intriguing pieces in their bullpen that any contending team would like to target. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I don't know if they're worth one of the Blue Jays' three catchers, but definitely interesting to take a look at.
Yeah, that's the real question. Do they have enough pieces that they are willing to trade to pry one of our catchers from us? And again, we'll delve into that. I'll just throw up another. We have a couple of other. This is from a different article, a different report. Basically, summarizing the whole situation. That Toronto obviously has outstanding depth at the catcher position. Talking about Kirk, Jansen and Moreno, and it says that Jansen seems like the most obtainable piece for the Tigers, as he would easily be the cheapest. Kirk has been the team's starting catcher, and he can obviously hit well. Plus, he's young. So this article is essentially saying that Danny Jansen is the one to target. And then on the flip side, the Tigers were 8th in the league in bullpen ERA, the lowest among playoff teams. They have several relievers that would be of interest to a team like Toronto. Naturally, everyone will mention Gregory Soto. I have several times, and it makes sense. And when he's on, he's nearly unhittable. So, yeah, so it seems like there's obviously a lot of rumblings going around, and I've been preaching the Gregory Soto choir for a while. However, him alone is definitely not would not work for one of our catchers, but I could see a deal being made this offseason with the Tigers.
For sure. And they have a ton of intriguing pieces like Alex Lang, Joe Jimenez, obviously Gregory Soto. And one thing I love about all those guys is that they have control, except for Joe Jimenez, who's going to be a free agent after this season. So that could be a play for the Blue Jays too. So if they were looking to get an expiring guy like Jimenez, they wouldn't have to give up one of their catchers. They could probably give up a lower end prospect, maybe a guy on their major league roster that doesn't play as big of a role because the Tigers are rebuilding. So there's a ton of different ways that the Blue Jays could go, but I mean, we'll break down a couple trades that we have here for you guys.
Yeah, let's get into it, and we are gonna whip out the trade machine graphic once again. We don't get to do this very often, so we're gonna whip it out. And the first trade we're going to talk about here is probably the most unlikely one, but it is obviously the biggest one that you guys obviously saw in the thumbnail, Tyler Skubal. And it is Spencer Horwitz, Danny Jansen, and Aurelvis Martinez for Skubal and Gregory Soto. Now, Skubal is obviously a phenomenal starting pitcher lefty for the Tigers with lots of control, and we're giving up Jansen and our one of our best prospects in Aurelvis Martinez, and we also get back reliever Gregory Soto. So this one, I don't think the Tigers. I don't know if the Tigers are going to trade Tyler Skubal. There hasn't been any talks about that yet. Well, I've seen his name mentioned a few times in rumors, but I don't know if the Tigers are going to be willing to give up such a nice starter.
No, I don't think so. I mean, for a rebuilding team, why would you want to give up a guy who still has 4 years left of service time, who has proven that he's very good, that he's very durable at the major league level? So yeah, that wouldn't make sense for them. He's still very young. He's only 25 years old. He's going to be 26 next season, entering the prime of his career. So I don't think so. But those guys that we're giving up on our end, Horwitz, Martinez, those are some top prospects, especially Relvis Martinez, who's our second ranked prospect right now, and Spencer Horwitz is not far behind either. He's a top 10 prospect, the Jays. So that is quite a bit to give up. I don't think the Tigers would want to part ways with Skubal because he would help their rebuild. And another thing there is that we're giving up a Relvis Martinez, who's a shortstop. Tigers just signed Javier Baez to a monster deal for a long time. Now he hasn't been performing up to that contract, but that's still their shortstop for the future. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky puzzle to solve here because obviously our catchers have a lot of value, and obviously Skubal has a lot of value as well. And the reason I brought up Skubal in this trade scenario is there was a report. I don't have it up here now, but it was from an article. I think it was a Jays article, something like that, with a proposed trade, and it was similar to this. It had Skubal involved. So it really just depends on how much the Tigers prioritize Skubal compared to getting a young catcher. If they were parting ways to Skubal, maybe they'd ask for Alejandro Kirk, and maybe that would be a non-starter for the Jays. But it was an interesting. I just wanted to throw it out there, throw it up for one more time. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. The value itself is pretty fair. It's just a matter of if obviously the teams are willing to part ways. But let's get into the next one now, which is a bit more of an interesting one, which is Lang and Wentz for Gurriel Jr. and Zuelita. We've heard a lot about Zuelita recently. Obviously, we've talked about him a bit as well. And Peter, I'll let you dissect this one a little bit here with because you made this trade up in the machine.
Yeah, so Alex Lang, he had his first season last year in the major leagues. He's a relief pitcher, great stuff. Big strikeout guy. Doesn't he walks quite a few guys though, so that's something to take a look at. But he only has a year of service time here, so he's only going to be free agent in 2028. So you're getting a quality reliever for the next 6 years. That's pretty good. We'll take that. So in 63 innings last year, he had 82 strikeouts, 31 walks. That's a lot of walks. That's almost a walk every 2 innings. You can't have that coming out of your bullpen, but he's got electric stuff. A little wild. I think it's something that Pete Walker could work with. And for Joey Wentz, I mean he's a quality starting pitcher who was also in his first season last year. Lefty doesn't throw very hard, low to mid 90s. He's got great control, and he's someone that you could rely on to really solid starter for you in the back end of your rotation, whether it be in the 4 or 5 spot. Doesn't have a huge sample size, but someone that the Blue Jays might want to look towards. But you are giving up quite a bit there. You're giving up Yosver Zulueta, who is very solid, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who's going to be a free agent next offseason, but that's still one of your key pieces in your lineup there.
Yeah, that was a pretty good analysis for you guys. Obviously, I'm sure many of the Jays fans don't know a whole lot about Lang or Wentz, but yes, for what we're giving up, like you said, Gurriel, who's expiring soon, but Zuelita is the big guy here. He throws absolute gas. He's been climbing up the rankings. Obviously, you got to give up prospects, and you got to give up prospects to get ready now talent, and that's what the Tigers would be giving us. So this is definitely an interesting one. This is probably a more feasible option that Ross Atkins might be looking at because, especially depending who they sign in free agency, if they want to replace Lourdes, you get 2 pitchers in exchange, and obviously you have to give up prospects at some point. But move on to the third and final trade here now, which is a quick, small one. We'll touch on it briefly. You guys might not even, I didn't even know who the Tigers, well, I know about Jimenez, but Desan Brown and Mitch White for Jimenez. I'll let you quickly touch on this one. Obviously, Jimenez is a pretty solid reliever, so this would be more of a minor deal, but it could have a nice impact, even though he's an expiring contract.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite trade of the three because I think it's the most realistic one. Now, Joe Jimenez, he's going to be a free agent next offseason. And I just saw him pitch against the Blue Jays this season, and he carved them up. Throws absolute gas. He's got a wipeout slider. Just an unbelievable reliever that I'm sure would be a huge factor late in games for the Blue Jays if we were to get him. And not giving up too much. So the Mitch White experiment, I think it's safe to say that it failed. I don't know. I'm ready to give up on the Mitch White experiment. I don't know about you, Nick. And Desan Brown, he's a top 25 prospect on the Blue Jays system. So I don't know. You're not giving up too much because he is an expiring deal. And I think Mitch White and a lower end prospect gets this done, and you get a quality reliever in return. And who knows? I mean, Mitch White, he fits the Detroit Tigers timeline. So does Desan Brown. If he comes up to the majors in a year or two, then I think they made out well with the trade.
Yeah. I don't think I'm ready to call the Mitch White experiment over just yet. I think if he has an offseason with the Jays, he could turn into something. But if this trade came up, it would be a very interesting question. I think the Tigers would definitely accept it, especially because he's an expiring. They're in a rebuild. I just don't know if Ross Atkins would be willing to give up on Mitch White, considering the the prospects that he gave up to get him. But I digress. We'll see. We'll see over the next coming weeks if a trade like this manifests. I think a smaller trade like this with the Tigers, or in general, might be the first domino to fall, and then we might see some bigger dominoes start to fall in the free agency when I guess when major players start to make their signings. That's when the other stuff will start to happen. But that'll wrap up the video. Again, 2K subscribers is unbelievable. Thank you guys so much. Peter, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see how this offseason unfolds, and we'll be there every step of the way to break it down for you guys.
See you tomorrow.